Here's an unpopular opinion. The future of gaming is almost certainly going to be cloud-based, and if it doesn't arrive in a big way by the time the next generation of consoles comes around, it will be firmly in place for the generation after that. I know it's not an idea a lot of gamers, particularly console users, are that into. Cloud gaming, if you weren't already aware, though I'm sure you are, works in pretty much exactly the same way as Netflix, Amazon Prime, or any other streaming service, only it's interactive, which automatically makes it more interesting. Basically, the cloud gaming server streams video of the gameplay directly to you. In turn, your input actions on your controller, or keyboard and mouse, are sent over the network back to the cloud gaming server. On paper, such an idea completely eliminates the need for gaming PCs or consoles with powerful hardware, as the cloud will be handling all of the heavy lifting. Of course, if it's so great, then why hasn't it already absolutely dominated the gaming landscape? The most immediate answer is that the technology just isn't there yet. It's one thing to stream the same 10 seasons of Friends to your laptop over and over again, but the concept of sending input actions back over the network with minimal lag has proven a stumbling block for many companies. I'm sure most of us have experienced the odd buffering screen when trying to watch Netflix. Imagine having to deal with lag of even up to half a second between pressing a button on your controller and having your character perform an action. It would render most games unplayable. And who wants to play an unplayable game? Not me. Bandwidth is also an issue at present. As you'd expect, streaming a game like Assassin's Creed Odyssey uses an absolute ton of bandwidth. Assuming for a second we'd measure bandwidth in tons. If everyone played games via the cloud, bandwidth usage would see a huge increase and bring the experience down for everyone. Finally, given that streaming anything, be it a TV show or modern AAA game, requires a decent internet connection, a cloud-only future for video games would put people in rural areas at a massive disadvantage. Imagine not being able to play the latest cloud-exclusive Elder Scrolls game because you live in a farmhouse in the middle of Cumbria. Not ideal. With that said, there are some higher-ups who believe that the cloud is the future of video games. Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot, for example, has predicted that the generation after the PS5 and Xbox Scarlet will make way for cheaper local boxes that could provide easier access to high-end streaming. He said, "With time, I think streaming will become more accessible to many players and make it not necessary to have big hardware at home. There will be one more console generation, and then after that, we will be streaming. All of us." It might seem like a wild prediction to you, but you have to remember that Guillemot is the same bloke who correctly predicted in 2007 that gaming would be twice as big as music by 2011. Bethesda boss Pete Hines also backs a future where cloud gaming reigns, suggesting it could be a good thing to move away from the idea of console exclusives. He told attendees at a PAX Austin panel, "I think you're going to see platforms get more homogenized, because truthfully, there's really not a reason for competing consoles to be different. You don't buy a DVD and then worry about which DVD player you have. You just buy a DVD and anything that plays DVDs works." And I think games are going to start to move closer and closer to that. The faster we get to that, the better it'll be for developers. The better it'll be for games. I think we as an industry, because we need to, are going to move less towards differentiation. On the other hand, Valve's Gabe Newell is unsure that cloud gaming is even worth the hassle. He's previously said the following: "Let's say our industry had never done consoles or consumer clients. Even if we just started out with cloud gaming, you'd actually go in the direction of pushing intelligence out to the edge of the network, simply because it's a great way of caching and saving you on network resources." Basically, if cloud gaming was all the industry had ever known, Gabe the Babe reckons we'd happily be flocking to local gaming on account of its many, many advantages. They're both interesting points, but still, you only have to look at the current crop of cloud-based gaming services to see that there is a market for it, to an extent, even if some of these services aren't quite perfect yet. The most obvious contemporary example would probably be PlayStation Now, Sony's own subscription service on the PS4 that allows you to stream a mix of PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 games to your PC, mobile device or PS4. The problem, at least in my own experience with PS Now, is that the games are prone to the occasional bit of input lag, and if anyone else in the house is using the internet at the same time, say if they're in another room trying to stream Netflix, then neither one of us is having a very good time, as both apps start running sluggishly. Meanwhile, in Japan, the Nintendo Switch is managing to play games it isn't actually powerful enough to run, such as Resident Evil 7 and Assassin's Creed Odyssey, thanks to the magic of streaming. Capcom seem to deem the endeavour a success, and haven't ruled out bringing more games to the Switch this way in the future. However, with Nintendo, Capcom and Ubisoft all refusing to say if this cloud-based Switch service could ever leave Japan and head west one day, we can probably assume that the techniques being used are in their early stages and aren't quite ready to go global. A real shame, because the idea of playing The Witcher 3 on Switch actually makes me salivate. Then there's Nvidia's own Geforce Now, which is perhaps slightly more niche than PlayStation Now, but comes with a very similar set of disadvantages. While both services are certainly serviceable, in their current state nobody is really crying out for them to be the future of gaming. Thankfully, the video game industry is well aware of the majority of these problems, and they're hard at work on creating solutions. Take Google for example. Not too long ago, the tech giant finally announced the long-rumoured Project Stream, which fully intends to allow gamers to stream AAA titles directly to the Chrome web browser. Obviously, such a move could be absolutely massive for the industry. They recently conducted something of an acid test to make sure they can get the whole thing working, running a recent and very selective closed beta that allowed participants to stream Assassin's Creed Odyssey straight to their browser. The whole point of this test, of course, was to allow Google to iron out any kinks. The reason they chose to test Project Stream with a game as massive as Assassin's Creed Odyssey was to push the service to its absolute limits and get an idea of where the problems might be. If early reactions to the test are any indication, it seems that Project Stream is a resounding success. The Verge called it straightforward and claimed it worked better than they could have expected, while Android Central genuinely believes Google's new service is on track to make consoles obsolete. A bold statement. Meanwhile, Microsoft is also making a play to dominate the streaming landscape. They recently announced Project xCloud, which seems like a culmination of the company's efforts to completely break down the wall between PC and console. As with all streaming services, Microsoft wants to use xCloud to bring console-quality games to almost any device. The company has apparently been working on this in secret for quite some time now, and are using state-of-the-art streaming technology. They've even got dedicated research teams working on ways to combat that dreaded latency. So it seems like it's only a matter of time before someone, be it Google, Microsoft, or Elon Musk in a surprise move, which is probably likely, finds a way to make streaming games more accessible than ever before. Whatever your thoughts on cloud-based gaming, you only have to take a look at the fact that some of the biggest names in the industry are putting a lot of time and money into it. Sony, Microsoft, Google, Nintendo, Ubisoft, Nvidia, and more are all dabbling in or actively working on ways to advance the practice of streaming video games. Of course, eliminating the need for consoles or powerful PC hardware would be a huge change to the industry, and there's no way to know how something like that would pan out in the long term. We can assume that rival companies such as Sony and Microsoft would simply set up their own rival subscription services, offering exclusives as incentives while sharing certain content. On the other hand, if a no-console subscription model became the future, what's to stop third-party publishers like Ubisoft and Capcom from setting up their own services, withholding their games from the likes of Sony, Microsoft and Nintendo? With the next generation of consoles looming, we can safely say that the future of traditional hardware is one that's bound to be full of uncertainty. We have no idea what shape game streaming will take in the coming years, and we don't know who will come out on top, who will innovate, or indeed, who will fail. One thing I think we can be pretty certain of, however, is that whatever happens, the cloud is going to play a huge and highly influential role in the future of video games. Thanks for watching. What do you think of cloud-based gaming? Let us know in the comments down below, and subscribe to Unilad Gaming for more videos.